Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
Good Monday morning to you at 6:07 on this 8th day of December. Yes, yesterday was Pearl Harbor Day, but we're going to talk about it a little bit today from a different angle that you might not be used to. Coming up at 7:35, Kevin Klein with Operation 85 for the USS Arizona to talk about, well, some people's whose remains have still never been recovered and their existence on Arizona haven't been acknowledged. It's a fight that he's been engaged in for quite some time. So we'll get into that. Also, before then, 6:35 in 30 minutes, Heather Higgins, CEO of Independent Women. 7:05, Joe DeGeneva. And then at 8:35, Chuck Thies, D.C. political analyst. So we've got a loaded morning here ahead of us. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. And I'm getting enough coffee going. It was a late night at the Kennedy Center honors. And I'm just going to keep talking about it. And not in any, I'm just so thrilled that I was there. I'm sorry. It was just exciting. It was so exciting.
Amazing.
Absolutely thrilling. I was brought to tears several times in the evening. The scrutiny on the scandal out of Minneapolis continues to grow, thank God. This, of course, has to do with the members of the Somali community who have been engaged in what appears to be the single largest tax fraud scandal in American history. These are Somali nationals who have been able to game the system, and it appears as though the Democrat Party in Minnesota, along with Keith Ellison, the Attorney General, and the Governor, Tim Walz, either are completely incompetent or they were in on it, or they just looked the other way and knew that it was happening, but for political purposes decided not to do anything about it. What's amazing is this story has been around for a while. It was certainly something that was reported on in Minneapolis at the time during the 2024 presidential election, but national media paid no attention to it because their job is not to vet people like Tim Walz. Their job is to run cover for them. Then finally, after multiple reports, including arrests and convictions of individuals at the point where the scandal reached a little over $1 billion, with suggestions that much of the money got funneled to a terror group in Africa. Then the New York Times wrote an article about it, which sort of gave a permission slip if media outlets wanted to cover it, and they covered it a little bit. Then President Trump made a comment about it, and about how there appears to be rampant corruption, including huge numbers of illegal immigrants in the Somali community. And suddenly the story has exploded because everyone's mad at Trump for saying what he said about the Somali community. But they don't want to talk about the actual corruption that led to this point. They just want to say, oh, Trump's being racist and Trump's being a bigot. And by the way, let's just be clear here. You know, these people were granted refugee status and asylum because they had a huge, bloody, despicable, maniacal war crime level civil war in Somalia. So, of course, we, through our generous Christian heart, open up our doors, let these refugees in. They all settle there. And then suddenly, you find tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of illegal refugees who have come to visit their pals, and they decided to stay. Not to mention the family members who, through anchor baby chain migration, have been able to come here quasi-legally through the system.
Yeah, I think what's very clear is that within the Somali community, and again, you're not allowed to say this, you are not allowed to say this, but we not only imported a number of Somalis, right, who, fair enough, may have been escaping their war-torn country, but also we imported the corruption that is just so... that is why Somalia is a failed state. I mean, ignore all the videos out there showing how it's the most beautiful place in the world, and I don't know why everyone doesn't want to just move back there then.
Right.
But we imported the corruption, the graft, the fraudulent behavior that led to a failed state, and now we have it in a little pocket up north in the United States. And instead of showing contrition and sadness and embarrassment, within the Somali community, I know we're going to get to Ilhan Omar here, it's defiance, and you're racist for pointing fingers.
That's right. Everything you just said that was fact-based about the corruption in Somalia that has now been brought here to the United States of America, and the graft and the violence, and
how dare you notice?
Racist. you're racist and you're xenophobic and you're bigoted. Oh, and anti-Islamic. You're an Islamophobe for saying that, too.
That's right.
Because,
that's right.
Although I don't think anything you said had anything to do with the religion that these corrupt individuals practiced, but it doesn't matter. That's the shield they've got. Oh, and by the way, I've also seen, the mayor of Minneapolis who just narrowly won his reelection bid against a Somali national. And all these other, they all go up there, they grandstand, and then they speak the Somali native tongue. And, they're Americans and they're a part of our community and they've been here for decades and they're not going anywhere. If they've been here for decades, why aren't they speaking just rudimentary English at this point?
Yeah.
Why do you have to still pander to them? And it's because they keep bringing more and more and more people who were here illegally. These people, some of them have just gotten here in the during the Biden administration. It's like, wait a minute, the Civil War's over. Why are we still?
Right.
We don't still have this asylum program. All right, so here's Ilhan Omar, who of course is the face of this community. Not on the defensive in any way whatsoever, very much on the offensive.
That's right.
Cut 5.
So this was, just for our audience, the Biden-era Justice Department called it the largest COVID fraud scheme in the country. And this was pocketing COVID-era welfare funds, more than $1 billion in taxpayer money that was stolen. It was pretty shocking. Of the 87 people charged, all but 8 are of Somali descent. And that has added to the spotlight being put specifically on your community. Why do you think this fraud was allowed to get so widespread?
Well, I want to say, this also has an impact on Somalis because we are also taxpayers in Minnesota. We also could have benefited from the program and the money that was stolen. And so it's been really frustrating for people to not acknowledge the fact that we're also, as Minnesotans, as taxpayers, really upset and angry about the fraud that has occurred.
Yes.
They're the victims.
Still. Yep.
You see,
Yep.
so Margaret Brennan points out the fact that of the 87 people, all but 5 are Somalis. And her response is, oh, no, we're actually the victims in all of this.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm angry that people aren't identifying us as the actual victims.
Right. By the way, this Congresswoman, Ilhan Omar, she did videos supporting the programs that were rife with fraud, supporting the organization and the person who runs the organization who has been found guilty of hundreds of millions of dollars of this fraud. She is personally linked to these organizations and supported and promoted the programs at these organizations that ended up defrauding the government. And that never comes up in these interviews, whether it's Margaret Brennan yesterday or whether it's Jake Tapper earlier or later last week. It's always about her speaking on behalf of the poor, put upon, downtrodden Somali community that's now a victim of these racist attacks. And never, hey, wait a minute, these people that got convicted. You've actually done events with them. Here's a picture of you with them. Here's you on video with them. What kind of relationship did you have with these felons? That never comes up. And I think it would come up if it were a congressperson that doesn't wear a scarf on her head, that doesn't have brown skin, that doesn't speak with an accent, that doesn't worship the Muslim faith, and doesn't have a D after their name.
Yeah, look, Jacob Frey, who is the mayor of Minneapolis, did nothing but a goodwill tour of Somali communities. There's this hilarious video of him eating Somali food, which did not look so good.
No, it looked like he was about to upchuck. Yeah,
it's actually really hilarious. But again, there was nothing but sort of this goodwill tour of Somali communities, and Ilhan Omar, Margaret Brennan doing the absolute minimum kind of questioning. Yeah, they're checking it off, and now they're going to turn the page, as Mrs. Waltz would say.
Yeah, we didn't get to play the part where Margaret Brennan leaned in and said, "By the way, that's a beautiful scarf. Where did you get that? Could I get a turban for my head too?" All right, a little bit more of the facts. Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, brought some facts to the table on that show since Margaret Brennan wasn't going to. And then we'll play that for you. And then what Ilhan Omar said about Stephen Miller of the White House, and his comments about what the immigration policies of the past have led to here in Minneapolis. We'll play that for you as well in a moment. First, though, at 6:15, WMAL.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
So Stephen Miller said about what was going on in the Somali community in Minneapolis. The part of the problem here is that our immigration policy not only has been unchecked and people violate it anyway, even if whatever policy we have, we still have people violating it, but then said, listen, and I'll quote him, "You're importing whole societies, not individuals. No magic transformation occurs when failed states cross borders. At scale, migrants and their descendants recreate the conditions and terrors of their broken homelands." And that's just objective truth. If you're, if you have some sort of expectations of an immigrant community or individuals who are immigrants and members of communities that are coming into a country, you have to have an expectation of adherence to the cultural and legal and societal norms of the country that they're immigrating to. But when they're brought en masse and just brought in as refugees and set up in a community like Minneapolis and say, okay, go to it, do your thing, well, that's why they literally call the neighborhood Little Somalia. That's right. Or Little Mogadishu or whatever it is. All right, so of course, at the end of this interview that was really a full body massage disguised as an interview, Margaret Brennan said, oh, by the way, Ilhan Omar, Stephen Miller said this horrible racist thing about you. How do you respond? Which is a great question. Cut 6.
Stephen Miller said, on Thanksgiving Day, he posted, "No magic transformation occurs when failed states cross borders. At scale, migrants and their descendants recreate the conditions and terrors of their broken homelands." What do you make of this argument of failure to assimilate and sort of ruining America? How do you understand this?
I mean, when I think about Stephen Miller and his white supremacist rhetoric, it reminds me of the way the Nazis described Jewish people in Germany. And as we know, there have been many immigrants who have tried to come to the United States who've turned back, one of them being Jewish immigrants. We know the way that people were described who were coming from Ireland, Irish immigrants. We know the way in which people were described back then when they were Italian immigrants. And to me, we're, yes, of course, ethnically Somali. We are in this country as Americans. Yeah. We are citizens. We are productive part of this nation, and we will continue to be.
Stephen Miller's Jewish, by the way, but that doesn't stop Ilhan Omar, without any interruption from Margaret Brennan, calling him a Nazi. Yeah,
of course. It's disgusting.
It is, and by the way, no actual response to the facts of the argument placed. It was just absolutely ad hominem and despicable attacks, which is typical. So here's Scott Besson on the same program, actually bringing truth and facts to this story. Cut 7.
And they are wire transfer organizations that are outside the regulated banking system. And that money has gone overseas. And we are tracking that both to the Middle East and to Somalia to see what the uses of that have been.
Okay, but you have no evidence of that money being used to fuel terrorism at this point, which is what some conservative writers are alleging.
That's why it's an investigation. We started it last week. We'll see where it goes. But I can tell you that, it's terrible. Representative Omar tried to downplay it, said, it was very, it was very tough to know how this money should be used. Yeah. She was gaslighting the American people.
That's exactly what she was doing. And then speaking of the immigration policy itself, cut 8.
Talk to her.
Yeah, but when you come to this country, you got to learn which side of the road to drive on. You got to learn to stop at stop signs, and you got to learn not to defraud the American people.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. It's like, we're new here. We don't know. Oh, you don't know that you're not supposed to defraud the government to the tune of billions of dollars?
Yeah, don't be a jerk. I mean, it's pretty simple. Don't commit crimes.
And by the way, the rhetoric coming out of the politicians of this community, if you see the videos, they all talk about how they're not Americans. They're Somali. Ilhan Omar goes in there and say, we're American citizens. Okay, then start talking like it and acting like it, right. Because every time she's in front of a microphone not speaking English, she talks about she's there to look out for Somali's interests. Not Somalians living in America. Yes. Somali interests in Somalia.
And we see this over and over again with a lot of these foreign-born folks, and this is going to sound very, the xenophobia, the racism, but there's a member, I believe she's Somalian, in Maine who makes these same kind of statements about allegiance to her home country and how she has to look. It's very disturbing.
Tom Homan was asked by Dana Bash about the new efforts of ICE in that community now, trying to find illegal immigrant criminals, deport them, especially those that already have a deportation order. And also, of course, they're picking up other illegal Somalis who aren't supposed to be here, that aren't even on the radar, but they happen to get picked up while they're doing their other operations. Cut 9.
I've talked to several state and local officials who've said that the number of Somali immigrants who are living in the U.S. illegally there is very, very small, and that this is about scaring people more than it is about arresting criminals. So what have you actually accomplished with this operation so far in Minnesota?
Well, we're just starting, and I disagree with the fact that people, even we don't know how many illegal Somalis there are, because remember, in the last 4 years in Joe Biden, there's over 2 million gotaways, known gotaways, people caught on video, drone traffic or sensor traffic that crossed the border illegally and weren't apprehended, weren't vetted. And so, what President Trump's doing is fixing the last 4 years of the open border where millions of people are released in this country, many we don't know who they are. So we're going to do the same thing in the Twin Cities we've done across the nation. We're going to focus on those illegal alien public safety threats in these cities. And
it is 6:24. Coming up, is it time to get rid of the filibuster and get more stuff done, knowing that the Democrats will do the same thing when they ever get back into power? Well, let's have that discussion with the CEO of Independent Women, Heather Higgins. She joins us next.
WMAL FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It is 6:37. Good morning. Thanks for letting us be part of your morning commute here on O'Connor and Company. We've got a busy one ahead of us, so let's give you a quick rundown. Starting at 7:05, it'll be the one, the only Joe DeGeneva joining us at 7:35. Kevin Kline, not the actor. He's the executive director of the USS Arizona Operation 85. He's, by the way, the grandnephew of one of the fallen during Pearl Harbor at the Arizona. Of course, yesterday, the 84th anniversary of that attack. And then at 8:35, Chuck Thies, D.C. political analyst. I am Larry O'Connor. And I know you're Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning. Good morning.
You got to behave now because you've got 2 of your bosses listening. Of course, your boss, our program director here at WMAL, and now CEO of Independent Women, Heather Higgins, a highly respected name in this town and in the conservative movement. Good morning, Heather.
Yeah, here I am. Yes. I fully expect Julie to misbehave because, that would be more in character and what we cherish.
Absolutely testimony that you, in fact, do know Julie very well. Great. Excellent. We don't have to pretend. Heather, thank you for joining us. I read your column in The Hill, and I have to say, a lot you're saying here about the filibuster and what you urge Republicans to do here in abolishing it. You're saying out loud in this Hill column what a lot of people are saying behind the scenes, but I think that there's some timidity about stepping out and saying this.
Probably.
Yeah.
Look, we're an institution-loving and, by definition, conservative means slow and incremental change. And it generally doesn't mean being the first out of the box. But we have a different situation here now. In fact, when I first started to write the column, it was when the CR was, very much being held up. And so there was discussion of getting rid of the filibuster in order to help the CR get through. And that is not a good and sufficient reason to do it. But as I thought about it, and as I went back and I reviewed what has been said publicly by the Democrats about their intentions had Kamala won, had they had the vote count that they needed in the Senate, I changed my mind. Because to go and keep the filibuster is under these circumstances is like being somebody who knows that you're going into a boxing match where your opponent has repeatedly stated publicly that they're bringing a knife and you, as a believer in performative virtue, just are going to show them the right way to do this by sticking to only showing up with your gloves, and they're reaching into their waistband and pulling out the knife, and you keep your gloves on because you're good and you follow the rules, and that's insane. It's absolutely insane. So it's not like we're madly speculating about what they might do without any evidence to back it up. There is now substantial evidence that this is the plan, and I think we should take them at their word and believe them, and it's madness not to.
Well, you talk about, unless we do this, I mean, the midterms look bleak. You say in your piece, Republicans should take note unless they can make a better case that theirs is the way to affordability, which it is. Midterms will be bleak if the GOP loses the House and Senate, Trump's agenda stalls, and we're back to impeachment and a likely Democrat presidency in 2028. So this definitely is tied to making the case that the Republican agenda and the Republican plan is better. And we need to make that case, especially to women.
Yes, and that gets into a bigger conversation. I am not sanguine about midterms. I think that there are a number of risks that conservatives are not properly evaluating. The first is, if you look at the Wisconsin special election, that was lost for the third swing Supreme Court seat. It was lost because the candidate went back to talking about abortion the same way that Republicans have been talking about it for 20 years, not the way that Trump and Vance talked about it, that totally took the issue off the table. 5 days after Vance's debate with Waltz, Kamala stopped using the issue because the way he had framed it, you could no longer fearmonger about it. And women who had been concerned about this now felt comfortable voting for other issues. And until Republicans get smart and follow that same playbook, the nanosecond that some Republican says something, because the narrative on abortion got shifted to not what is your policy, but what would Republicans do if they had the votes. The term pro-life does not mean to the average person in America what a pro-lifer thinks it means. The way we talk about things raises all sorts of fears, and it is Republicans have to learn a different way to talk. But beyond that, then getting to the issues, even if you neutralize the issue, yes, making things affordable is hugely important. The Trump administration is already doing just an unbelievably heavy lift and succeeding at it, but it's going to take a while. And if you look at my piece, it enumerates a number of things that would be worthy of getting rid of the filibuster, that are structural changes that would have huge and immediate impact, that really would affect how the GOP is perceived and what the country feels like going into the midterms for most Americans.
You're pretty plugged in, Heather Higgins. This is Heather Higgins. She's CEO of Independent Women. You've been around town for a while, and you know a lot of people. What's the response? What do you hear from other senators? What are they telling you in reaction to this, and do you think that there's a stomach there for it?
I don't think that there is yet the stomach. I think that the president needs to make the bigger case, right? That's why I think it needs to be pitched to these larger seismic structural changes that are so important, guaranteeing that elections are something that everybody trusts and believes is safe on both sides of the aisle, right? It's got verification, it's all the rest of it. It is something where, getting that healthcare price transparency in play, right now the administration is working on that, but they're only dealing with essentially 10% of the problem by focusing on retail prescription drugs. That's not tackling the big, Megillah. And we've got a big report at Independent Women that's about to come out on healthcare price transparency. There's a wonderful bill in the Senate. It would be awesome if they passed it. There are regs that the Trump administration is working on They need to be broad. They need to be not limited, as some people really are trying to make them be, to just the small segments and not really authentic see cash prices up front. And this is so important to businesses because you can't have a market until you have a price. It's part of why the Affordable Care Act failed too, right?
Yeah.
So
really quickly, Heather, in conclusion, I just wanted to get this in. Do you think that if the Republicans kill the filibuster, will it restore proper checks on government?
Gosh, the proper checks on government is really a function of each of the three branches stepping up and balancing each other. It's the filibuster is not what's saving it. The filibuster right now, particularly the way it's being misused, most people don't realize there are actually two filibusters. The one that has, I think, been responsible for starting a lot of the problem is that they now use the motion to proceed to consider to keep legislation from ever getting to the floor. The idea that the Senate is now the place where all ideas are debated and discussed is not true. It has become the Senate incumbency protection racket, right? By not taking up bills that are going to be difficult, and you don't want to have people have their voice. And as somebody who just thinks that more discussion is better, and I think that that's part of where the problem now lies, because you get all this stuff that gets through the House, but it doesn't ever make it to the Senate floor. And so it's a function of the Senate being brave.
Yeah, well, all right. Oh, great. That's what we got to count on?
Yes,
okay.
Exactly.
We'll see. We'll see, Heather. Heather Higgins, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and all that jazz
Merry
to you.
Christmas
Thanks for
to you
joining
all
us.
as well.
And great article. Everyone's talking about this op-ed right now, so I'm glad that we were able to pick your brain on it, and it's going to cause a ripple today, I think, when everybody gets back to work. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Later this morning on the Chris Plate Show, the mad pipe bomber arrested by the FBI. The Democrats and the media try to blame Trump for him. 9 a.m. on WMAL.
Julie Gunlock, Cher, one of your favorite all-time performers, Cher is 79 years old. She will be turning 80 years old next year. And just in time for her 80th birthday, she's going to marry a 39-year-old man.
What is it that attracts you to Cher, 39-year-old man?
Good question. Yeah. And obviously the answer is her butt.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Can I just say, the thought of being turning 80 years old and marrying someone under 40 just exhausts me.
I mean,
it just
what?
makes me want to take a nap.
I mean, honestly, I think you have to get off your couch if you marry a
for that sort of thing.
It's so funny.
Maybe she's going to be spending extra time on the couch, if you know what
true.
I mean.
I am at the age where 39, I'm like, what a tiny baby. 39.
Meredith is 39.
Yes, I know.
But I'm not 80.
Wow.
That's the difference. Yeah. So there you go. And you know what? Good for her.
Well, look, everybody needs a companion, and I don't know.
I'm sure it'll go along.
Who doesn't love a wedding ceremony, right? I'm trying to be positive here. I have nothing positive to say.
This kind of thing will go a long way to solidifying the mental and emotional stability of her transgender child, Chaz. I'm sure Chaz sees this and says, now do you get it? Now do you understand what's going on in my head? Is there any wonder? It is. Yes. Well, one last comment.
Well, I'm just reading this article. It says, Cher doesn't give a hoot about their 40-year age difference. Yeah, I bet she doesn't give a care about a lot of things right now. I mean, she's 80.
Like your child, who is older than this person.
Yes.
Also, he looks gay. It's 6:54. There are a few things in life where trust really matters, and trusting your loved ones, trusting your government. But